morning, Asia. Good evening, America. You're watching World DNA with me, Rahisha Sehgal.
And my name is Hemkaur Soroyan. Today, India goes to polls in the fourth phase of the Lok Sabha elections. 96 seats across 10 states up for grabs in this phase, including all 25 seats in Andhra Pradesh, 17 in Telangana. Voting for assembly seats will also take place in Andhra Pradesh today. Of course, we'll get you all the latest from India's political landscape on the show today. We have our team of reporters in key locations fanned out across the country.
Also on the show today, Russian President Vladimir Putin has replaced his defense minister Sergei Shoigu, citing the country's rising military spending and the need for innovation. Well, these are the most significant changes that Putin has made to the military command since sending tens of thousands of troops in Ukraine in 2022. We'll of course be tracking that very closely on the show. But first, a quick check on the headlines.
Putin replaces Russian defense and security chiefs Sergei Shoigu and Nikolai Patrushev, both prominent figures in the Kremlin's Ukraine war machine.
US top diplomat Antony Blinken defends decision to pause arms supply amid concerns that they could be used in Gaza's Rafah, says Israel lacks credible plan to protect civilians.
Kuwait forms a new cabinet headed by Sheikh Ahmed Abdullah Al Sabah and the Emir's nephew, who was previously appointed Prime Minister in April.
Taliban cancelled Pakistan delegation visit following airstrikes by Pakistan. Sources indicate Pakistan killed at least 4 terrorists in operation conducted on May 10th.
Phase 4 voting underway in India's 7-phase general elections. 177 million voters across 9 states and 1 union territory expected to select their lawmakers.
Maldives Defence Minister acknowledges the island nation's military still does not have pilots capable of operating 2 helicopters and Dornier aircraft donated by India.
Shein, a Chinese fast commerce brand, is defying the trend and may soon go public. This raises questions about why this development is significant and how the IPO could influence the global finance industry.
Rory McIlroy warms up for the PGA Championship in style. The 4-time and our top focus in World DNA. Well, cracks are emerging between Israel and its longtime ally, the United States of America.
Right, the rifts between the two sides becoming more prominent, with Washington making perhaps its strongest public criticism on Israel's conduct in Gaza. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says Israel lacks a credible plan to protect some 1.4 million civilians in Rafah.
He warns that Israeli attack in the southern city of Gaza can create an insurgency by failing to kill all Hamas militants.
Israel's on the trajectory potentially to inherit an insurgency with many armed Hamas left, or if it leaves, a vacuum filled by chaos, filled by anarchy, and probably refilled by Hamas.
Blinken also confirmed Biden's decision to put on hold weapons to Israel. The interview was dominated by Biden's decision to pause a shipment of bombs to Israel and a State Department report that Israel's use of US-supplied arms may have broken international law.
According to reports, to discuss ceasefire efforts and humanitarian aid access in Gaza, Turkish intelligence chief Ibrahim Kalin engaged in talks with Hamas officials, including Ismail Haniyeh in Doha.
Turkish president has also slammed the United States and Europe for not doing enough to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza. He believes there isn't enough pressure on Israel to make them agree to a truce, which Hamas had accepted earlier.
Well, this comes as Turkey has time and again denounced Israel's attacks on Gaza. Ankara has also decided to join South Africa's initiative to have Israel tried.
Along with Egypt, which has announced its intention to formally support South Africa's case at the International Court of Justice. Despite pressure from several nations and alarm expressed by residents and humanitarian groups, Israel continues to proceed with an incursion into Rafah.
As thousands of Gazans take refuge in Deir al-Balah, the displaced civilians have set up sprawling tented settlements in the town, including along the Mediterranean Sea shore.
On the battlefield, an Israeli airstrike in Sabra neighborhood of the Gaza city, it's killed a senior member of a Palestinian militant group, Democratic Front. They've also sent tanks into eastern Jabalia and northern Gaza Strip after a night of heavy aerial and ground bombardments.
On the other hand, the militant group Hezbollah has unveiled a new heavy rocket. Hezbollah says the rocket targeted several Israeli positions at Mount Dov. The rocket, which has been used by the militant group, has been named as Jihad Mughniye, in reference to the Jihad Mughniye, who was the son of renowned leader Imad Mughniye. Both of them had been eliminated in Israel-linked attacks.
While on the humanitarian front, Israel has opened new aid crossing into the Gaza Strip in coordination with the United States. According to the IDF, the crossing is called Western Erez. It has been opened in the northern Gaza Strip in order to transfer humanitarian aid. Well, to discuss the practical implications of this, Colonel Rich Outzen is a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and Jamestown Foundation. He is joining us from Washington, D.C. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you on World DNA.
Good to be with you.
Now, sir, these are perhaps the strongest comments that we've heard from the United States side. There are real concerns, they say, around how certain supplies and systems are being used by Israel in its war in Gaza. How do you assess these statements?
Well, it's possible to read them at two different levels. On one level, some Israeli commentators have said, look, this is really a matter of where we set up the tents and when we set up the tents, and that the Democratic administration of President Biden is trying to appeal to its base by appearing to raise important humanitarian questions that actually don't impact the lives of Palestinians that much at all. Which is not entirely untrue, but if you look a little deeper, there's a second level at which you can read this, which is frankly that, yes, it's about civilian suffering, it's about the length of the campaign, it's about how many more civilian deaths, along with whether Israel's actually going to achieve what it says it's trying to do, which is to get rid of Hamas. And at the end of the day, that's the real objection from Washington. That's the way I read this, which is that the lack of a political strategy for what happens after a Rafah operation is really what's at issue here. The Biden administration and many friends of Israel, and I count myself as one of those, are wondering, if you go for a major operation in Rafah, that's fine, but what happens after? Who is left running Gaza if you get rid of all of the Hamas people? And again, Hamas, the United States recognizes as a terror organization, but the question is, what happens the day after? And there still has not been a credible plan for that. And many Israeli critics, as well as the Biden administration, are saying, please answer that question before you move to the next stage.
Right, Colonel Outzen, just to follow up on the point you made there, that there is no credible plan of the Rafah invasion and what happens after that. And US says, like you mentioned, that Israel lacks a credible plan. Do you reckon that this is a sign of growing differences between Israel and perhaps its strongest ally, the United States of America? And these differences between Washington, D.C. and Tel Aviv, what kind of bearing will that have on Israel's ground operations?
Well, this is certainly in the last 30 years the biggest gap, the biggest difference of opinion that the policy elites in Washington and Jerusalem have had. There's been differences over the peace process and the Oslo process and sort of the conduct of different Gaza operations. It's never come to this point, certainly since maybe the Reagan administration or perhaps George Herbert Walker Bush's administration. So we're talking 30, 35 years. This is a generational difference and tension between the two capitals. What does it mean? Well, it doesn't mean that the United States is going to punish Israel at this stage. I mean, certainly on both sides of the aisle, the Democrats and the Republicans both still are very much in favor of Israel's security and still feel a great affinity for Israel. But what it means is that Netanyahu has gotten Israel into a position of non-consultation or ineffective consultation with Washington to the point where we can't achieve a common strategy. That's highly unusual. I think what it means is that there's real question marks both in Israel and the United States about the course and the conduct of this war. It doesn't mean, again, that there's some shift in the essential support of the United States for Israel. I don't think that's what we're talking about. But it just raises the question mark that, since October, it's been 7 months now that we've been engaged in watching the conduct of this military operation in a very, very small territory, and there's still not a good political strategy for how it ends.
Right, Colonel Outson, thank you so much for taking our time and joining us here on World DNA with your insights on this.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, let's shift our focus now. Vladimir Putin has replaced his defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, with a civilian economist, Andrei Belousov, and the move comes amid rising concerns over military spending.
Right, Haim. This also marks the first major military shake-up in the country's security cabinet since its invasion of Ukraine. Well, earlier, Belousov served as the first deputy prime minister. As per Putin, he has been chosen over a need for growing innovations at the war front. Citing military spendings, the Kremlin has revealed that it was approaching levels last recorded during the Cold War era. The move is a clear indication that Putin is now seeking to align the economy with war efforts. Before the beginning of the war, just 3% of Russia's GDP was slated for defense spendings, and this figure grew to 3.4% in the initial phases of the war.
Currently, 6.7% of the GDP is focused on defense spendings.
И второе, наверное, что важно отметить, это сегодня на поле боя побеждает тот, кто открыт, больше открыт для инноваций, больше открыт для максимально оперативного внедренчества. И поэтому, естественно, что на нынешнем этапе президент принял решение, чтобы Министерство обороны возглавил гражданский человек.
Separately, as per the Kremlin, Shoigu has been appointed as the Secretary of Russia's Security Council. In fact, he is also said to become Putin's deputy in the Russian Military Industrial Commission.
Сергей Кузьмич Шойгу. Он был освобожден от должности указом президента министра обороны Российской Федерации и назначен также указом президента Российской Федерации секретарем Совета Безопасности Российской Федерации.
As per experts, Putin's choice of having an economist as a defense minister mirrors the changing priorities of the Kremlin. The news follows the arrest of Shoigu's close ally and Deputy Defense Minister Timur Ivanov. As per Russian media, he had been accused of accepting over $10,000 in bribe. Well, moving on to other global stories, hundreds of demonstrators gathered in the Tunisian capital to demand the release of imprisoned journalists, activists and opposition figures.
Now, the protesters have also called for setting a date for the presidential elections. The protest comes amid an economic and political crisis and a wave of arrests targeting journalists, lawyers, activists and opponents. Tunisian police stormed the building of the Deanship of Lawyers on Saturday and arrested Sonia Dahmani, a lawyer known for her fierce criticism of President Kais Saied.
Well, 2 journalists were also arrested on the same day. The Election Commission said earlier the elections will be held on time, but with the president's first term that lasts for 5 years drawing to a close, it has still not announced a date. Saeed took office after free elections in 2019, but 2 years later seized additional powers when he shut down the elected parliament and moved to rule by decree.
He also assumed authority over the judiciary, a step that the opposition called a coup. Saeed has repeatedly criticized what he describes as the opposition's scramble for presidency, saying they boycotted the last round of parliamentary elections while focusing on the presidential vote. The opposition says the political climate is currently not suitable for holding elections amid restrictions on the press and the imprisonment of prominent opponents and activists. And moving on, Afghanistan's Taliban government has called off Pakistani military delegation's visit to Kandahar.
And this comes following Pakistani airstrikes Afghanistan's Paktika province on the 10th of May.
Now, as per reports, Pakistan used drones to target the fighting units of Taliban-Pakistan in the region. At least 4 terrorists were killed during the strikes. While Pakistan has not confirmed the attacks, it has long claimed that the banned terror outfit operates out of Afghanistan, an allegation that Kabul has denied. However, in March this year, Pakistan claimed to have carried out several cross-border attacks targeting the TTP.
The meeting between the two sides was supposed to focus on border cooperation and also to resolve the differences over the banned Taliban-Pakistan. As per sources, the delegation was slated to meet Mullah Shireen Akhund, who is the deputy head of Afghanistan's intelligence agency. Akhund, who is a close aide of the Talibani leader Hibatullah Khundzada, was a key member in brokering a deal between Islamabad and TTP. In fact, he travelled to Pakistan earlier this year to address the said concerns.
Now, originally, the delegation was to travel from Rawalpindi to Afghanistan's Kandahar city on Sunday. Previously, Afghanistan's Foreign Office had announced that Pakistan had sent details of the delegation's transit with Kabul in an official letter. Pakistani officials have attributed the calling off of the meeting to weather conditions. However, Kabul is yet to make a formal announcement over the cancellation.
A 4th Indian national has been arrested in connection with the killing of the Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
This as per the Canadian police. Of course, Nijjar was allegedly shot dead outside a Gurdwara in Surrey, British Columbia last June. Canadian authorities say they arrested another Indian national, Amardeep Singh, in connection with the case. Amardeep Singh hails from the Brampton, Surrey and Abbotsford areas in Canada. He has been charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder.
Now, the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police confirmed that Singh was already in custody for unrelated firearms charges. Superintendent Mandeep Mukkar, the officer in charge of the probe team, said, and I'm quoting him here, "This arrest shows the nature of our ongoing probe to hold responsible those that played a role in the homicide of Hardeep Singh Nijjar," unquote. Now, previously, IHIT has arrested 3 Indian nationals, Karan Barar, Kamalpreet Singh and Karanpreet Singh in the case. All 3 are charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder.
The Nijjar killing had strained relations between India and China after Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau alleged Indian involvement in the case. India has strongly refuted the claims and criticized Canada for providing a platform to separatists. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has expressed concern over Canada's leniency towards individuals with dubious backgrounds, while questioning the prioritization of vote banks over the rule of law.
The leaders have also emphasized the need to reinvigorate multilateralism.
All right, let's shift our focus now. China, it's emerged as India's largest trading partner for the fiscal year 2024.
Right, Hemant, surpassing the United States of America, that too. Well, according to data from the Global Trade Research Initiative, bilateral trade between India and China reached $118.4 billion, slightly edging past the $118.3 billion trade with the US. India's exports to China saw a notable uptick of 8.7%, driven by sectors like iron ore, textiles, spices and agriculture.
Conversely, India's imports from China rose by 3.24% to $101.7 billion. This growth in imports has led to a widening trade deficit with China, reaching $85.09 billion.
Meanwhile, India's trade dynamics with the US witnessed a different path. India's exports to the US dipped 1.32%. Simultaneously, imports experienced a major decrease of about 20%. The US was India's largest partner in 2022 and 2023.
Now, the report highlights India's evolving trade ties alongside China and the United States. The United Arab Emirates emerged as India's third largest trading partner with a commerce volume of $83.6 billion. This is followed by Russia, Saudi Arabia and Singapore. Data reveals that China was India's top trading partner from 2014 till 2018 and also in 2021. UAE was the country's largest trading partner before China.
Well, the world is facing a massive economic downturn. People are cutting down on spending, companies are getting leaner. But one brand from China is turning out to be an outlier right now.
Right, and we're talking about fast commerce brand Shein, which could go public soon. Wonder why that matters and how IPO can shape the global finance industry? Well, that's what our next report explores. Take a look.
Elevated inflation, job uncertainties and recessionary fears has led to weak consumer demand globally, especially in China. But one of the standout success stories in the Chinese market is fast fashion giant Shein, which is known for its affordable options for the global consumer. Now, Shein's decision to shift its focus from a New York listing to potentially listing on London Stock Exchange reflects a strategic move amid regulatory challenges in the US market. Facing hurdles and pushback from US lawmakers over alleged labor malpractices, Shein aims to navigate these obstacles by exploring alternative listing venues. For consumers, Shein's potential IPO signifies the continued popularity and accessibility of affordable fashion globally. Known for its budget-friendly clothing items, Shein's expansion into the public market could potentially lead to increased visibility and accessibility for consumers worldwide. However, from an investor perspective, Shein's struggle to clear regulatory hurdles in both the US and China underscores the complexities and risks associated with investing in companies operating in highly regulated industries. Overall, the story underscores the importance of navigating regulatory landscapes and exploring alternative listing venues to access capital and expand their global footprint. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, moving on now. Before we take a short break here, let's take a look at a drone light show that illuminated skies over Hong Kong's Victoria Harbour. All right, as always, time now for a short break.
But don't go anywhere. On the other side of World DNA, we'll get you a story of how Maldives Defense Minister has acknowledged that the island nation's military still does not have pilots capable of operating 2 helicopters and a Dornier aircraft donated by India. We'll get you all the details on the other side of this short break.
Also on the other side, millions of Indians casting their votes today in the fourth phase of the seven-phase election. Who are the top contenders? What is it like from ground zero? We'll get you all the reports. Stay tuned for that. Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the US.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
States and union territories, 96 seats and more than 1,900 candidates. The countdown begins for Phase 4 of the world's biggest electoral exercise. High-stakes battles and opposition promises versus NDA guarantees. All seats in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana up for grabs. Continuous coverage on WION.
The biggest democratic exercise on the planet ever. Decoding the multiple colors of this multi-dimensional, multi-layered spectacle. WION deciphers the images and the hues. Sifts real performance from rhetoric and noise, claims and counterclaims, populist pitches and hidden truths. Untangling, unraveling this celebration of democracy.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
back. You're watching World DNA with me and him. And on the other side of the show, we'll get you all the latest from India, where phase 4 of the Lok Sabha elections is currently underway. We have a reporter spanned out across key locations in the country. But first, a quick check on the headlines.
Putin replaces Russian defense and security chief Sergei Shoigu and Nikolai Patrushev, both prominent figures in the Kremlin's war machine.
US top diplomat Blinken defends decision to pause arms supply amid concerns that they could be used in Gaza's Rafah, says Israel lacks credible plan to protect civilians.
Phase 4 voting underway in India's 7-phase general elections. 177 million voters across 9 states and 1 union territory expected to select their lawmakers.
Rangers deployed, internet suspended, schools and offices shut down to counter demonstrations in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir as demonstrations continue for 4th day. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif calls meeting with all stakeholders.
Taliban cancelled Pakistan delegation's Kandahar visit following airstrikes by Islamabad. Sources indicate Pakistan killed at least 4 terrorists in operations conducted on the 10th of May.
Maldives Defence Minister acknowledges island nation's military still does not have pilots capable of operating 2 helicopters and Dornier aircraft donated by India.
Shein, a Chinese fast commerce brand, is defying the trend and may go public soon. This raises questions about why this development is significant and how the IPO could influence the global finance industry.
Rory McIlroy warms up for the PGA Championship in style, the 4-time major winner.
Now, Maldives Defence Minister has acknowledged that the island nation's military still does not have pilots capable of operating 2 helicopters and a Dornier aircraft that was donated by India.
And this announcement comes days after 76 Indian defence personnel left Mali at the instance of recently elected President Mohamed Moizu.
Now, these remarks were made at a press conference while responding to a journalist. He was briefing the media about the withdrawal of Indian soldiers stationed in the Maldives to operate 3 aircraft. And their replacements in New Delhi had provided the Dornier aircraft to the Maldives to help the island nation enhance surveillance over its exclusive economic zone, as well as to keep an eye on seaborne terrorists.
Now, the ties between the 2 countries took a downturn after Moizu, a pro-China leader, insisted on the withdrawal of all Indian military personnel operating the 3 aviation platforms in the island nation by May 10th.
India has already withdrawn 76 military personnel. Interestingly, the current administration criticized the previous government and claimed that there were capable pilots in the MNDF to fly these donated aircraft.
Now, training Maldivians was the main reason for the arrival of Indian soldiers. The helicopters were donated during former presidents Mohammad Nasheed and Abdullah Yamin's governments.
Meanwhile, the Dornier aircraft was brought during former President Ibrahim Mohamed Solih's government, despite the failure to complete the training to date. Foreign Minister Zamir said that the agreement to replace the Indian soldiers with civilians also includes provisions for training local pilots. All right, for more on this, we're now being joined by Principal Diplomatic Correspondent Siddhant Sibal. Siddhant, thank you so much for joining us. To begin with, how important are these 2 helicopters in the Dornier aircraft to the Maldives that New Delhi has donated?
Well, these are important since they are used for humanitarian purposes. Now, the comments, of course, shows that still training is required by Maldivian authorities, the pilots, for operation of these humanitarian assets which India has given. Now, essentially, we know the controversy that Maldives president, who came on anti-India plan, said that he would like to remove all the Indian military personnel. It has happened last week, and it has been replaced by civilian personnel, Indian civilian personnel. But still, Maldivians don't have the capability, and for that, the training is underway.
Right. Thank you, Siddhant, for joining us on the show and getting us all the latest on that. Well, the world's largest democracy, India's mammoth parliamentary elections roll into their fourth out of the total 7 phases today.
All right, all eyes are on the southern states of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. Voting is taking place in 96 seats across 9 states, 1 union territory. Simultaneously, polls are also taking place for 175 assembly seats for Andhra Pradesh and 28 assembly seats in the eastern state of Odisha.
CM sir.
177 million voters are expected to exercise their franchise today, with several prominent contestants like Akhilesh Yadav, Mahua Moitra and Asaduddin Owaisi making it a high-stakes round.
The polling will take place in all the 25 constituencies of Andhra Pradesh, 17 seats in Telangana. Apart from these southern states, polls also taking place in 13 seats in Uttar Pradesh, 11 in Maharashtra, 8 constituencies each in Madhya Pradesh, and West Bengal, 5 seats in Bihar, 4 each in Jharkhand and Odisha, and 1 seat in Jammu and Kashmir.
Well, the big names on the ballots in this phase include Samajwadi Party Supremo Akhilesh Yadav, who is contesting from the family bastion of Kannauj.
Over in Bengal, Trinamool Congress leader Mahua Moitra will attempt to defend her Krishnanagar seat. Congress's Bengal chief Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary is contesting from Baharampur. It was one of the 2 seats the party won in the 2019 elections.
And he's up against ex-Indian cricketer Yusuf Pathan, who joined the TMC in March. Well, further south in Telangana, AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi will be battling a high-profile clash for the Hyderabad seat that has been in his family since 1984, when his father won it as an independent contestant. And he will be contesting the seat against BJP's Madhavi Lata.
While in Andhra Pradesh, a fight within the family is brewing. Chief Minister Jagan Reddy's sister, while Sharmila leads the Congress's charge, she is contesting the seat against her cousin and sitting MP YS Avinash Reddy. After the completion of today's vote, the general elections will have crossed the halfway stage, with polling completed for 381 of the lower house's total 543 seats.
Sir, you can see, ma'am.
India's mammoth parliamentary elections roll into the 4th phase of the total 7 phases today. Voting is underway. All eyes this time on the southern states of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. Now, important to note here that voting is taking place in 96 seats across 9 states and 1 union territory, and simultaneously polls are also taking place for 175 assembly seats of Andhra Pradesh and 28 assembly seats in the eastern state of Odisha. And as we mentioned earlier, we have our reporters fanned out across key locations in the country. We are now being joined by our reporters. We are joined by Siddharth MP, who is joining us from South India, and of course from Idris Lone from Srinagar. Thank you so much for joining us, both of you. Siddharth, I want to come to you first. 25 seats in Andhra Pradesh. Talk to us about the high-octane face-off in Andhra Pradesh today.
So Andhra is a very interesting state because of the fact that there's simultaneous Lok Sabha and Assembly elections. So in 2014, Andhra saw a win by the Telugu Desam Party, TDP, which of course was part of the then NDA. It was led by Chandrababu Naidu. And in 2014, they won, but their fortune slid in 2019. In 2019, Chandrababu Naidu contested alone and he was not with the NDA. And in 2019, it was the YSR Congress Party that swept to power both in the Assembly elections and also got a good number of seats in the Lok Sabha. So this is actually what changed the fortunes in favor of incumbent Chief Minister Jagan Mohan Reddy. So he hopes to get a second term in a row in the Assembly. So that's the key battle and issue in Andhra Pradesh, where Jagan Mohan Reddy is looking to get a second term. As far as Chandrababu Naidu is concerned, he's part of a large alliance now. He's part of the BJP-led NDA. Of course, his party is the major ally in Andhra Pradesh for the NDA, Telugu Desam Party. Then, of course, there's Pawan Kalyan, the Actors Party, Janasena Party, and the BJP. All of them are fighting the might of the YSRCP, the incumbent party, together. And this is also a three-cornered fight because it's the NDA on one side, the incumbent YSRCP on the other, and the Congress Party on the other side. So interestingly, the Andhra Congress faction is led by Jagan Mohan's sister. So Jagan Mohan's estranged sister, Sharmila, leads the Congress Party there. And the most interesting battle is the Kadapa Lok Sabha seat, where Sharmila is taking on her own cousin. So Sharmila is taking on her cousin, Avinash Reddy. So this is again a very interesting battle where, you know, cousins are taking on each other from two different political factions. So that's something that's to watch out for in Andhra Pradesh.
All right. Right, Siddharth, coming to you, Idris, you're joining us live from Srinagar. Srinagar witnessed a high-octane campaign before the polls. Today, you're joining us live from the polling station there in Srinagar. What is the mood like on the ground? Have people started trickling in already?
Well, absolutely. We saw a lot of excitement during the campaigning in the last 1 month, and that is actually being translated on the ground right now. We are in one of the polling stations, and I'll ask my cameraman to pan and show you. There are huge queues and lines of people in various parts of the Srinagar city who have already landed at the polling station to cast their vote. This time we did see a lot of excitement, especially in those areas which were a no-go zone areas in the earlier times. People did come out in huge numbers to be part of the election campaigns, and now it's translating on the ground as well. If we talk about Srinagar constituency, there are around 17 lakh voters. 50% of them are men and 50% of them are females, while as there are 2,100 polling stations across the Srinagar constituency. After the delimitation that was done last year across Jammu and Kashmir, now Srinagar constituency consists of 5 districts which include Shupen, Pulwama, Ganderbal, Srinagar and Budgam. And this time, if we talk about the candidates that are in the fray, the National Conference candidate is being supported by the India Alliance, which is Congress in general, because they did not field any candidate in the Jammu. They fielded their candidates in the Kashmir region and are being supported by the Congress. If we talk about the other 2 major candidates which will give a tough fight to the National Conference candidate is the PDP's Wahid Para and Apni Party's candidate from the Altaf Bukhari's party, who's Ashraf Mir, who's also been told, especially by the regional political parties, that Apni Party is getting support from BJP. That is one of the reasons that BJP has not fielded any of the candidate in the Kashmir region. So it's going to be a tough fight between these 3 candidates. But what is more exciting is that people are coming out in huge numbers in various parts of the Srinagar constituency. And as the Election Commission and the authorities had predicted, that the voting percentage this time would be definitely much higher than the previous years.
Right, Idris, you have painted us a picture of the poll battle there. But I also wanted to understand, what are some of the voter sentiments and concerns that have dominated the polls this time around?
As it is the first election after the abrogation of Article 370, it's to be seen that what exactly would translate into whether people will vote for the development that has taken place in the last 5 years across Jammu and Kashmir, especially if we talk about Srinagar, which has been converted into a smart city, and there's been a lot of development with regard to roads and other infrastructures. But will that really translate and help the Bharatiya Janata Party in the region to get the votes, because they have not directly fielded their candidates but indirectly are supporting few political parties? On the other hand, has the decision of revoking Article 370 really worked for them or not will be seen in this election. If we talk about the political parties, especially the National Conference, whose MP is the Dr. Farooq Abdullah, who's the sitting MP right now in the Srinagar constituency, they have a chance to win this seat. We've seen the mood of the public in the last 1 month, and if we talk about the rallies especially that were taken out by the regional political parties, National Conference seemed to have the maximum number of people attending those, and that needs to be seen whether that will also translate into the at the polling station or not.
Right, Idris, coming to you, Siddharth, all 17 seats in Telangana will also go to polls today. Talk to us about the three-cornered fight between Congress, BRS and the BJP in the state.
See, Telangana is a very peculiar case right now because the way the state has evolved over the last couple of elections is very, very important. So generally there's a perception that down south the BJP has a stronghold only in Karnataka. But you know, now Telangana features second on that list because last parliamentary poll in 2019, BJP bagged almost 25% of the seats that are up for grabs in Telangana. That is, they got 4 out of 17, which makes it 1/4 or 25%, right? So for the BJP, this is a major achievement because they're able to breach another state down south, a region where generally they have not had a great deal of support outside of Karnataka. So this time the BJP has set themselves a loftier goal where they want to get at least half the seats, which is 8 or 9 seats. Once they get that, they can say they've arrived in Karnataka. So that's, I mean, I beg your pardon, they can say that they've arrived in Telangana. They're already there in Karnataka in a big way. So they can say that, you know, they've arrived in Telangana once they breach the halfway mark, at least 8 or 9 seats if they get this time around. They can certainly claim that, you know, the second seat, the second state down south, it's actually there in their pocket. So that's something that the BJP can claim if things work in their favor. As far as the state political dynamics are concerned, the state's politics were generally dominated by the Congress and what is known as the Bharat Rashtra Samiti. Earlier they were known as Telangana Rashtra Samiti. But what came as a shocker was last assembly election where K. Chandrasekhar, a veteran politician, K. Chandrasekhar Rao's party was completely decimated by the Congress, and under the leadership of young Revant Reddy, who's the incumbent chief minister, Congress stormed to power. So it will be interesting to see how K. Chandrasekhar Rao fights back to, you know, prove that he's not done and dusted.
By 28% compared to the previous quarter. The report said that in India, an organization faced around 2,807 attacks per week in early 2024, making it one of the most targeted nations worldwide.
Sectors like education, government and healthcare were noted to be the most heavily attacked. In India, top malware threats originated from sources like fake updates, botnets, remote access trojans and information stealers.
While India faced a major surge in cyber threats, other nations were not spared. For instance, North America, Europe and Asia Pacific also grappled with escalating cyber attacks during the same period. Reportedly, North America emerged as the region that was most impacted by ransomware attacks and accounted for 59% of the nearly 1,000 reported attacks, followed by Europe and Asia Pacific.
Major US telecom giants AT&T, T-Mobile and Verizon are in hot water. The firms have been slapped with $10.2 million fine by several US states for misleading customers. An investigation has found that the trio deceived customers with false promises regarding their unlimited plans and offers of free phones. To settle the legal matters, AT&T, T-Mobile and Verizon have agreed to be more transparent in their advertising. They'll only label plans as unlimited if they genuinely offer limitless data. However, they must clearly disclose any speed limits and when they apply. Additionally, each company is required to assign a dedicated representative to communicate with the state investigators and handle customer complaints.
A US-based report has found that while many adults are trying to cut down on social media, around 36% have learned about mental health issues through it. Well, according to the US-based healthcare company CVS Health, about 48% mentioned that they are likely to turn to mental well-being apps for care. The survey that was conducted among 2,202 US adults in March of 2024, it showed that 65% have mental health concerns for themselves and the loved ones. The study also found that mental health is now a top concern for 77% of US adults, alongside issues like the economy.
All right, let's now take a look at what's making news in the world of sport. The English Premier League title race is going down to the wire. Arsenal have reclaimed the provisional top spot with a 1-0 win over Manchester United and